Welcome to Veronica's News Review. My name's Veronica. Obviously, my name's in the fucking title. And here's the unusual thing. I am not middle class or privately educated. I know, right? And I am joined by my producer. I have a producer. It's only because I have a tendency to go off script. You can't handle me.
You're a maverick. Hello, I'm Ben. By day, I'm a radio producer. I've never done a podcast before. It's quite exciting.
Calm down, Ben. We're only talking about politics. It's not going to be that exciting. Although it is good to try something new. But anyway, me and my boy Ben will be looking at political events that have made this fucked up country what it is today.
That's right. And this is a safe space to share. There is no judgment or censoring here. It's called discussion and nuanced debate. It used to be popular back in the day, and it's time for it to make a fucking comeback.
Yes, and why a podcast? Well, everyone seems to have a fucking podcast these days. If Alan Partridge and James O'Brien can have one, then it's my turn.
I think this will be better than anything James O'Brien makes. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, thanks, Ben. Well, where do we start?
Let's go in big and hard for the first episode, Brexit.
Big B. Get this one done and out of the way early.
Are you ready? Prepare yourselves, ladies and gentlemen.
Brexit, here we go. 23rd of June, 2016, the day that an entire nation committed an act of self-harm and voted to leave the European Union. And so the shit show of several years of nothing but the Brexit ball begins.
Yeah, I know, Brexit is fucking boring. Brexit is like that annoying little paperclip that used to appear on your computer. Just fuck off, you smug little prick. But it's an important and ongoing situation that we have to deal with thanks to David fucking Cameron.
There were months of debate. I say debate, it was more like lies, fear-mongering, and calling anyone who was thinking of voting leave as racist or stupid. The fucking arrogance of David Cameron. Remember him? The greasy little pig fucker who fucked the country right up the arsehole with austerity and, of course, the clusterfuck of Brexit. He assumed that we would vote the way he wanted. The fucking arrogance of David Cameron. Remember him? The greasy little pig fucker who fucked the country right up the arsehole with austerity and, of course, the clusterfuck of Brexit. He made no plans for if the country voted to leave. He assumed we would vote the way he wanted to. I am not letting that slimy weasel off the hook. I voted Remain as I felt it was the safe option. I accepted the result.
Well, we should say, by the way, David Cameron did not actually fuck a pig.
No, he didn't, sadly, but it's fucking funny to think he put his posh cock in pig's mouth. And this is just the fucking beginning, folks.
Oh, we were all fucking surprised at the result, weren't we? 52-48, or more accurately, 51.9% and 48.1%. Those numbers will haunt me for the rest of my life. I voted leave, and even those that voted Brexit were shocked.
Sorry, what?
I voted to leave the EU.
Sorry, let me just respond to that in the usual Remainers way. You Nazi! Look, Ben, I'm not going to have a go. I do want to know why you voted to leave. I want to understand. I know that's a rare thing from the left these days.
That is refreshing. Okay, well, I am a socialist and an old school lefty, and the EU are a right-wing economic bloc. They are a pro-corporate and unelected commission.
You have a point. The EU isn't perfect. It's not a woke utopia. To be honest, I didn't even know about the European Union until we actually had the referendum.
Yeah, and I got a shit ton of abuse from my so-called liberal friends just because I didn't vote the way they wanted me to. They accused me of unconscious bias.
Ah, yeah. They decided that you're a bigot, but you just don't know you're a bigot. How very liberal. Remain good, leave evil was the joke. Not everyone who voted leave is a southerner who hates foreigners and votes UKIP, just like not everyone who voted Remain is a middle-class Remoaner who votes Liberal Democrats.
Exactly. The referendum was much more complicated than left versus right.
We were leaving. Let's get the fuck on with getting the best deal. But let's not forget, the Tories were in charge of the negotiations, so it was always going to be an utter cock-up. A reason to remain? Voted to leave, then stay. That's democracy. Why does that seem so difficult for people to understand? I don't understand. Insulting those who voted differently instead of listening and persuading them is how we fucking lose.
We never fucking learn, do we?
Let's have a look at the politicians who campaigned in the referendum. Fronting the Remain campaign was David Cameron, George Osborne, and Jeremy Corbyn. Sort of. And the poster boys for Leave was Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, and of course, toad-faced cock-womble, Nigel Farage.
I didn't even fucking know who Nigel Farage was before 2016. Simpler times. Before that wanker appeared everywhere spouting his right-wing nonsense. And the rise of UKIP. Are UKIP still a thing? I haven't heard from them in a while.
Well, that's not exactly a bad thing, is it? At least with Nigel Farage, it was clear which side he was on. With Jeremy Corbyn, he was sat on his garden fence with splinters up his arse. The majority of Labour MPs voted to remain, even though the EU represent what the left are supposed to be against. Jeremy is an anti-EU and has been since the 70s. But to keep his party together, he went along with being for Remain and seeing what happens.
It is a tough one. Do you go against with what the majority of your MPs voted to go with how you actually feel and risk division in your party? Or do you ignore beliefs just to hold your party together? If I was Corbyn, I would have been honest to my party on my feelings about the EU and support the result of the referendum.
I suppose, but Labour weren't in power at the time to negotiate a deal with the EU.
That's true. I don't think Labour would have been fucking stupid enough to gamble away our country's future like that.
The biggest load of stinking bullshit was that there was a plan. The easiest deal in human history, my fucking arse. A classic Boris Johnson lie, and there was no plan. No one had a plan. No preparations, no objectives, and no fucking clue how to leave the European Union. The Tories didn't have a fucking clue and were just incompetent all the way and used Brexit to protect their own interests. Labour couldn't make up their minds, and the Lib Dems wanted to stop Brexit. Not very liberal or democratic.
They should rename themselves the illiberal undemocrats.
That's a good one.
Thank you. I made that one up all by myself.
The media's take on this national debate was, let's face it, in the shitting gutter, which was where British media has been for a long time.
But they had lots of work during those years. I bet they haven't seen their families before 2020. They were never at home.
True, living in a newsroom, having sleepovers. You can just picture it, can't you? The newsreaders in their little pajamas and sleeping bags.
Laura Kussenberg doesn't sleep in a sleeping bag on the floor. She has an inflatable double bed.
I wonder if Robert Peston sleeps naked.
Thanks for that image.
Do you think Robert Peston has a big dick?
What are you fucking asking me for? I've never seen his cock. I've never even met the bloke.
Okay, I was just thinking out loud. He's quite a tall bloke. Everything has to, be in proportion.
Veronica, come back to earth.
What? Well, oh, yeah, the media's approach to Brexit.
The problem was that they reported it as a left-right issue. Who is fighting who? What's the biggest load of lies they can get away with?
And every headline was Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. It was like nothing else fucking happened in the news. Let's be honest, they fueled the division of the country, shouting their opinions at each other instead of informing and giving us the facts. I think the media has to take some of the blame for this. The media have been feeding us the same shit for years, that it's the working classes that are to blame, that you should pay the price for the rich. You are going to vote for change, aren't you?
That's true. People were saying fuck you to the political and media elites.
That didn't work out well, did it? Boris Johnson, the embodiment of elitism and entitlement, who wasn't elected by the electorate, then became Prime Minister.
Brexit. Seriously, who was the bastard who came up with that fucking word?
I don't know, but it's such a shit word.
Sounds like a medicine for if you have the shits.
You're right, it does. Now we're stuck with that word.
Usually it's mentioned when the Brexit hits the fan and it's always bad news.
And since the day after the referendum, we have had no actual government running the country. Most of those are responsible have fucked off.
The only stable ones in Westminster were the SNP, and they don't even want to fucking be there.
It's fucked up.
You can say that again.
It's fucked up.
The old ones are the best.
We had delays in leaving, a snap general election, and a change in Prime Minister. This shows our government's irrelevance and incompetence to the rest of the world.
Here's a question. Would you still vote Remain?
Yeah, I think I would. I would definitely vote the same way. Would you still vote Leave now that you've seen what life is like post-Brexit?
Honestly, I would vote to Remain. I think that if Labour are in charge of Brexit, I would vote Leave.
Interesting.
We left the EU on the 31st of January 2020. The big question, has Brexit been a success?
In principle, yes, because we are now out of the EU, which is what the majority of people voted for. But in practical terms, it has been a total cock-up.
We were promised real benefits of Brexit. Are wages higher? Are energy bills lower? Have we taken back control? Do we have 350 million a week for the NHS?
Boris Johnson boasted about getting Brexit done.
It's not done though, is it? Do we have any of the Brexit benefits we were promised? No, 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 and no.
The blame for this shit show goes to David Cameron for calling the fucking thing in the first place and not having a plan and then fucking off. Theresa May for being about strong and stable as a limp dick. And Boris DeFecking Johnson just for being the lying, law-breaking cunt that he is.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Remaining in the EU now seems like a dozen or so muscly men lathered in baby oil gyrating their beautiful stuff in your face. Now that we've left, it's more like a bunch of fat, gross men with their flabby asses hanging out. Not a pretty sight.
That's quite a metaphor.
This concludes the first instalment of Veronica's news review.
I think we've had an interesting discussion on a very dull topic.
Yes, we did. Thank you for joining me on this political journey, Ben.
My pleasure. I think that we've put the world to rights.
Fancy a little celebratory drink?
Yeah, why not? After talking about fucking Brexit, I need a few.
All right. Oh, and one last thing. Fuck the Tories! This isn't on the BBC, so I don't have to be balanced. Until the next time, bye. Say bye, Ben.
Bye, Ben.